Welcome to the Jira Life, the place to find news, events, and interviews with the Atlassian community's movers and shakers. Because we didn't choose the Jira Life chose us. Thank you to Revyz for backing us up and making the Jira Life possible.
I love that short intro.
And making the Jira Life possible.
It feels, I mean, just my 2 cents, it feels a little too short, but it does get to the point.
Exactly. And I think I prefer it over the cold intro too, a little bit.
Yeah, you know, the outro is like 4 minutes long, 6 minutes long.
Well, you know,
I can go make dinner. I can go make dinner and come back up.
The outro, we have cut it down. It's only 1 minute and 30 seconds now.
Yeah, so see? So is anybody going to join today, being that it's the Thursday before a Friday holiday?
That is the question. I'm only seeing 2 people on
both of you
YouTube.
are one of them.
I know I'm one of them.
And Sarah's the other.
Hi, Sarah.
So what are we talking about today? We got comments or something like that?
Yeah, even though we put it in, you know, broadcasting it, will threaded comments change the world? I have so many more thoughts, though, than just, you know, threaded comments is fantastic and I'm excited. But I also just want to dive into what do people think comments are and are not useful for? Where do they go? Where do you want to see them?
I'll tell you what they're not. They're not status updates.
No, they're not. But I've been wanting to play this video on this show. This is one our own Alex put on LinkedIn earlier, and it's kind of blowing up. And I just about died laughing when I saw it this morning.
Well, thank God you didn't die, because that would have been bad.
Well, I'm not allowed to die formally, but do you mind if we share it?
Share it. Yeah. Let's go.
Wait, so you haven't seen it?
Oh, yeah, I've seen this one. Okay.
I'm hoping sound plays.
Welcome, everyone, to my bedroom.
I know, right? That's okay. We've got the CC even if we can't hear it.
I mean, I'm right here. I can dictate it out for you guys.
Yeah.
There's the Valiantis cup.
There it is. That's how I never have the audio on anyway, so I didn't even know you were talking in this.
And this is a secret to everything. I have ChatGPT do everything for me.
Yeah. Then if you have a ChatGPT do everything for you, then why do people need you?
I don't know. To do that, to actually hit the button and delete somebody.
Right.
And this is the Jira and Confluence documentation that I printed out back in 2017.
Oh, yeah.
I do keep in my nightstand to read every night.
As you drift off into Z-land. That would put me out personally. Okay, so then what does that have to do with, is a comment a status update, or should a comment be a status update? And if not, where does that go?
The first thing Alex mentions in there, and this is where I'm tying the two together, is, and I noticed the number specifically was 42.
I love that.
He checks his 42 comments and sees if anyone's replied, which I think brings me to my first pet peeve.
Too many
How many times it feels like we put comments in and we're just shouting into a void.
Oh, totes. Yeah. So then why do we do it? What is their purpose? I'm going to actually ask Rodney very directly. For you, what should comments be used for?
What I typically use comments for in my Jira tickets are not for other people specifically, but for me, to take notes to remind me, this is where I was at with this story at this point in time. But that's my 2 cents.
Uh-huh.
And that's speaking from up until very recently, undiagnosed ADHD, apparently. So that was one of my coping mechanisms. But that's what I've traditionally used them as, is basically not a status update for other people. Status update, so when I come back to this in 2 days, I go, where was I at? Oh, that's what I was doing.
Heard. Alex.
So I do a little blend, a little status update, a little action item follow-up for me. Because I'm usually the scrum master in the project. And so what I'm doing is we have a list of, bugs or tasks or stories that need to get done. And we're trying to figure out what's the latest and where we blocked or what connections need to happen. And so I'll connect people and go, at whatever, Timmy and Jill, y'all need to get together and figure this part out. Because we're talking about it. We got the leads in the room. We got the stakeholders in the room. And we're kind of addressing why forward progress isn't being done. So I'm not putting the status per se of like, this thing is stuck because of X, but rather because of X, X, Y, and Z need to happen. And so I'm tagging people or just writing it down, because every day we're reviewing it, and I'm going to come back tomorrow and go, have we talked about this yet? Where are we at with this? Like, what happened then and there? That's how I'm using comments.
You said a word that...
I say a lot of words.
You use a specific word that isn't necessarily triggering for me, but only in the respect of like triggering another component of this that I'm curious about. So given that, yes, right, here's where I left off. Here's like, if I, you're doing a little stand up with yourself. Here's what I did yesterday. Here's what I need to do. And here's what's blocking me. And then also when your instance, Alex, right, talking about having some, almost tasking, getting additional updates. And so you said the latest, like what's the latest with it? And because I know a lot of people, right, like what's that last comment? And to me, that always signals you'd have to be really clear and intentional about comments if you're going to rely on a last comment to be meaningful and impactful, especially if that's the only thing you might be showing on a board or during a meeting.
Yeah. In fact, to pull on that thread a little bit more, no pun intended. What I've actually done for a few teams is make an automation rule that takes the last comment and puts it into a field, a text field. And I tell people it's got to be like a tweet, because short text fields can only have like 250 text or characters or whatever, right? And so we basically make tweetable comments. And the intention there is because the comments are not visible in plans or in the list view or really much anywhere except inside of that, the work item itself, I will copy that comment automatically through automation, put it on the text field, so then that can get surfaced. So then when I'm looking at a plan, I can see what that latest comment is.
I do the exact opposite. I have a field that you populate as this is the latest status. And then that goes down into a comment for historical purposes. Because once again, how relevant is that last comment? That's my challenge always with that.
Well, if that's the last comment. that's the cliffhanger,
okay,
right?
But how relevant is the last comment?
It is very relevant. It's the cliffhangers where we last left off on our hero's journey.
See, okay, go Rodney.
I mean, I have seen plenty of organizations where the comments are almost irrelevant. Even when you try and use them, try and show people how to use them as a Jira admin, go, hey, what's the status of this on a comment, on a ticket or something? You'll get crickets at best.
And then the last comment is, what's the status?
That's because you have a crappy Scrum Master.
Oh.
You push.
Okay. Sorry, here we go again, though, friend. Now let's expand out beyond Agile and beyond Scrum, right?
You have a crappy project manager.
Because then, right, comments. What are comments? What's our best uses, right? Because a lot of times they end up being conversations as well, getting clarity, right? In areas, those are possibilities. So, are you judicious like at mentioners in those and using them for those ways, or when those conversations have to happen, do you move outside of Jira?
I'm moving outside. but I use it on notes.
If I'm asking a question or I'm trying to get information from someone or something, I'm absolutely at mentioning them. I don't trust the default mechanisms within Jira for proper notifications, especially because so many people filter out the Jira noise in their emails.
Yeah. Agreed, right? And since you can do that, but, unless I mention, don't talk to me.
Yeah, I use the comment though as a CYA. Because when I go ping them on Slack or on Teams or email, I go, you had a comment. If you chose not to read it, it's on you. But per that last comment, you had an action.
Yes, to finish eating.
My sister-in-law made these like delicious like strawberries and cream ice cream. And nice. I'm trying to finish it. And I started well before the Jira Life, and I was optimistic that it would have finished before, but here I am trying to finish it now.
I'm jealous you have so many of those left. But so do we think threading then, getting back right to something we promoted, how does threading help with that? Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's ice cream.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say whether you love or hate threading is going to largely depend on how old you are. Because generation of us who grew up in our first internet experience with something on like either an IRC or an AOL chat room,
it's just
going to hate threading.
I hate threaded comments.
Love threading. I will die on that hill that a threaded conversation.
It is useful for compartmentalizing information, and it is great to not have the main chat flooded by hundreds of little details on some particular something. But I like seeing that flow of how things went and what order things went in, and did this come for this? Not to mention now I have 10 different threads I need to check on to get status update of everything to understand what's actually going on. And God help if they cut this thread off and start a new thread somewhere else. Now I've got to figure out where that link is and all that. And that's my issue with it. It is an attempt to organize chaotic information, but I'm not sure it succeeds at organizing the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it because I'm usually replying in the heat of the moment, and I'm like, full in a train that has left the station, and we are bantering back and forth in comments. And the last thing I want to do, because the conversation is evolving so quickly, is go back up, stop my train of thought, figure out where this thing is supposed to be naturally nested into, and then go in there. Like, it helps from a third-party perspective, right? Somebody that's coming in and watching. But in that heat of that moment, that slight disruption to go figure out where to organize the comment, I think is more detrimental than just putting the comment on there. I'd rather get it out than put it in the right spot.
I hear that. I haven't tried the threaded yet. So I'm not sure how clearly it presents itself when you need to go add something on a thread. How do you think they've done with that?
I think it's okay. Where I have a bigger problem is, and not to throw us into a sidebar here, but what the heck is up with why would you put like Atlassian Intelligence to help you write the comment?
Oh, I didn't understand it.
Why would you have like the brainstorming feature? Like, help me figure this out.
So I do want to sidebar to sidebar. If you guys are on YouTube, which I know Alex and Sarah, well, Sarah is, I know she's on YouTube watching the stream as well with me. They added this new feature that basically gives us experience for each comment we make in the live stream, and then it ranks us. So now people are going to have to comment to keep their rank.
Come again?
Speaking of comments.
So comments go flood the comments, people. Everybody type in a 1, then a 2, then a 3.
I mean, there's nothing for quality. It looks like just pure quantity. So
exactly. That's how you win. The most always wins.
Yep.
Okay, so what is threading going to do to your last comment? Does it still take the last comment no matter if it's a thread or non-threaded?
I don't know. I haven't experimented with that one. I don't think a lot of people know you can thread yet.
Here's the thing, though. The last comment, the last top-level comment, may not be the last piece of information anymore. So you've got this jumping around now that, again, I'm not sure. Considering people aren't choosing the feature already, I'm not sure it helps. But at this point, Teams have been threaded forever. Slack is now threaded. I think even Discord supports threads now. So I think this is the way the internet's going. We just kind of have to go along for the ride, whether we like it or not.
Yeah. But with one minor exception there, Rodney, because Jira does it backwards than Slack and Teams. Because when you're typing into Slack and you write a comment, you hit enter, it's at the bottom of the list, right? And every new comment's at the bottom. It's appended to the bottom. Versus in Jira, it's appended to the top. And so I'm okay with the threaded comments on Slack because if I hit a comment, that comment's going to move up when the next comment comes in, right? And then when you thread, it also does it in this like sidebar type of view. If we take like Slack, we take Slack as an example, so it's easy for me to like click into one and then see the thread, and because I'm kind of like doing like a parallel universe, right? But in Jira, the way it's commenting and the way it's threading, we are now losing the timestamping, right? Because the newest comment comes at the top, but the thread can keep going. And now it's possible for you to have a threaded comment that's newer, nested 20 layers deep on a thread, but it's the newest thread. But then another one's going to come on the top. So the times are all off now.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, I think if the comments were from the bottom up, I think maybe it might be easier because everything newer would be towards the bottom. But in this one, you can have a mixed match of newer comments at the top and newer comments in the bottom nested somewhere deep in that thread. But you don't get that experience in Slack or Teams or anything else. So I think Atlassian needs to go back to the drawing board on this threaded comments one. Figure it out.
Yeah, because it sounds like it's still just like a column, right?
Yeah.
And then is it doing just the
it's just it's indenting it in. Yeah.
Yeah, and arguably, it does make it a little more challenging when you're the person who goes, hey, I want to go respond to something. And then where do I want to put that response in this sort of rapid fire way, right? Because like I would make a case when you're talking about something external, like a team or a Slack, you might be thinking more, it's not as rapid fire, so a thread can just go back and forth. But in here, where you want to be more intentional, and then to have to take that little extra moment for that intentionality, definitely can see a problem there.
But I personally rely on timestamps a lot to see where that conversation is going, like how it's been evolving, right? Because what I do a lot, right, is I don't know if you guys do this at all, but I'm not only just looking at the signal from the comment, but I'm also looking at the signal from the history, right? So depending on if there's a comment going on, then I'm looking at the history, like when was something in the sprint, or did it get out of the sprint, right? Or when was it estimated, or when was the priority changed, or when was the status changed, right? And so I'm cross-referencing that timestamp of when the conversation is happening versus the activity that's happening in the issue itself. And that's helping paint a full picture for me. And again, the threaded comments, I think, just make it a little harder for me to be able to look at all the signals that I need to see in one easy way, because now I got to go deep into a thread.
My comments are all in the thread to the countless for experience. Unknown.
The other thing is, do the comments collapse, Rodney? I haven't played with them too much. Like, what happens when you do 3 or 4 comments here?
That was going to be, yeah.
It appears they do not.
And why are they so big? They're like, it's huge now.
Wait, and you can't reply, so you can't do nested comments.
No. If I reply to a nested comment, it's just next line down.
But if you add
And
the
the
add
add
comment
mention.
at the top, it'll just add a brand new comment, right?
Yeah, let's go add
Yeah.
a new comment up there.
No,
That's
it's
the
the
same
top,
thing.
at the top.
Not a
Oh.
threaded, yeah.
I will say kudos to being able to mention people a little easier.
Yeah, that's nice.
But see, now here's what I'm talking about. The latest comment's at the top, but the second to latest comment is way at the bottom now.
And without the ability to collapse, because that's what I was expecting it more so to be like, hey, let me go see what's under there, so that you can scan that a little bit faster.
Yeah, so now you're gonna have to remember what was all the way at the top and 35 comments down, because now they're relevant, right? Like somebody, because somebody's definitely not gonna forget that you can do threaded and just stick it at the top. And that conversation is gonna be so what's the opposite of contained?
Loose.
Despair?
Well, and this is the point too, is we're not in premium, are we here? Are we?
No, we can't afford premium, but we are looking for more sponsors.
So if you want these live demos to be in premium, please, consider
business at JiraLife.com.
Yeah, have your people talk to our people.
Exactly. Well, because then the other thing starts when you're in premium and you've got your AI, right? Then you can just kind of go through and say, hey, AI, summarize all of this for me.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was going to go with it, right? Because this reminds me of a conversation that I had. I can't remember. It might have been the lady from DevOps, or it might have been Sashan. One of the two interviews that I did, because I did I'm forgetting the lady's name. Help me, Sarah. You were there.
I can't.
The DevOps lady that I interviewed.
I can't remember people's names.
Oh. I interviewed one of the two people that I interviewed that are from Atlassian. MCB, you're listening. We're looking for.
You need to read that out loud, because in case he's listening in his car.
MCB, if you're driving your car right now, pay attention to the road. But also, we need a premium version of Jira. We need a Jira with all the bells and whistles so that we can show off all the features, or at least be able to critique all the features. But what was I trying to go with?
He needs to only be able to make team managed projects for Alex's sake.
No, but where I was trying to go with this, right? So the comment that Atlassian gave me, as soon as I can remember their name, was along the lines of like, we need to design a Jira that is not for an end user, but rather for an AI based experience, right? And we got a little bit of teaser of that from with Dave Meyer as well a couple of weeks ago. But I do see, like, it doesn't matter if your comments are nested or unnested or threaded or not threaded or just scattered or whatever, right? You just hit the summarize button and it will tell you what's going on. So the real question is, can the AI figure out the mess? Because as long as it can figure out the mess, then I don't care how you put the comments in now.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was, kind of my question too. And if it can figure out, me, I keep waiting for like this ridiculous level of personalization that says it knows what my role is on this project or with this organization. And then it can summarize it in a way that's more meaningful to me, as opposed to maybe more meaningful to, the developer working on it.
Yeah. Well, let's open up some comments here and let's figure it out.
Because the other thing I'm not seeing here that I've seen it in an instance, but I haven't seen lots of reports about it yet, is there's another panel, at least for sure over like Premium Enterprise, there's another panel about the views and whether you're doing it as a like a discussion view or a details view, I feel like is what they were called. And then that moves your comments, gives them more prominence, I think. And I might have just been in a beta and it's gone now. I gotta go check.
So what I'm doing over here
for our drivers.
Yeah, so what I'm doing over here, Rodney, if you don't mind, I'm going to steal the screen from you a little bit.
All right.
And oh boy, what happened to my thing? So I have my Atlassian one open up with and I got some threaded comments here about. And so I just have a few comments. And so we have this summarize, get AI to summarize this thing for us. So we're just going to hit this button and see what it tells us. The ticket addresses a critical complex risk with the MP project. The issues assigned to Max. Comments by Alex and Cruz. Praise for the team members and dissatisfaction with comment threads. But that didn't summarize my comments. That's interesting. So it pulled God knows what else, but kind of summarized my comments.
My view is gone, by the way, so it might have just been a short
What happened?
beta.
And this is also interesting. So once you hit the generate the comment once, how do you refresh it? I want another one. Like I want to see it. I want a whole new one because now that was interesting. So I added a new comment, but it didn't pick it up to give me a new summary.
Maybe it takes a little while for it to get into the teamwork graph.
Well, I'm doing a refresh. There it is. So I had to refresh the screen. And so no commented the functionality of AI and praise the team members. So no specific team actions. Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't know how much I like it, but it'll read through the comments and understand the nesting of it and then just give you a summary of what's there. Nothing too powerful, but still.
And you have to hit it, right? It doesn't just appear, for better or for worse, right? Because if it just appeared, we all be like, get it out of the way. but the action of hitting it is also challenging, right?
Yeah. Now, what do you think about collapsible comments? Then should they be collapsible, or is that okay that they're not collapsible?
See, I want them to collapsible.
You want them collapsible?
If I want to dig in, I want to intentionally dig in.
I'm kind of on team don't collapse. Because if you collapse the comments, then you run the risk of not seeing the comment. And I think that's worse than having the nested comment.
I'm laughing. I'm like, I want to upvote now on it. I want to throw up comments, and then I want to be able to have one in a thread that you upvote, and you'd be like, this is the outcome, right? If these were all the comments.
So, you might be onto something. I'd like to pin the comment at the top.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And say
or
this
like
comment.
Make that the main, the thread or something. Because I assume most threads are dealing with some sort of problem, right? Or you're potentially looking for something, having a discussion. So what's the outcome of that? So if we're not always expanded, then we have to search for that. But is there a way to find it that you don't have to search?
And
I
think,
yes, I do.
And my two cents, I think I would enjoy the thread of comments if they were more like a Slack comment where it opens up on the detail section on the right.
Yes.
Right? Like, I think that to me would be interesting.
Where you can still dive down, right? You can still see all of your topics, effectively. And then go over.
Yeah, because now I can scroll up and down in two different panes and see what I want to see, how I want to see it. Because, 50 comments deep, you're going to be scrolling for days there. 100 comments deep, you're going to be scrolling for weeks.
But granted, the latest comments at the top, if you're trying to get a history and understand how
but it's not,
this thing is evolved, you're still doing that.
But your latest comment is not at the top. Your latest comment can be at the top or at the bottom. On whether you...
In the old ways, in the non-threaded, let's assume you're still on DC. You don't have threaded comments. If you have 100 comments on there, you're trying to get a full view of the history of that issue. You're still scrolling for days and days.
But it's still sequential. Now you can be out of order. So you could have a comment that was a week ago. Somebody goes and started a thread there today. Then you can have another comment from a month ago, and somebody can go start a thread there today. And now you're out of sync. Now you're out of, and I prefer the old way because it's still in chronological sequential order. You're reading the conversation as it happened. You're going to be reading in reverse, but you're still reading in sequential order. Versus this threaded common way is a whiskey tango foxtrot.
Well, so now does it have the possibility to introduce functionality that perhaps in some way wasn't necessary because our comments meant to have all of these different topics, or is it, I don't know, like on the one hand, I can see it supporting the async, but on the other hand, maybe it just convoluted.
You know what's right? No.
Do you know what threaded comments are really going to help? And I think that's honestly why they introduced them now and not 5 years ago. Is going to help that teamwork graph and therefore Rovo understand what comments are associated with each other.
So I just want to throw this out there. What happens when I do this? And I'm just going to throw in...
We land in a parallel universe, I'm pretty sure.
No, I'm just... Yeah, so we're talking text-based comments, and then Atlassian comes in here. We're at a left field, and now I don't even have a regular comment. I just have this. What do we do with this? Now I'm gonna sit there and hit play on 50 comments just to carry the conversation. Can you imagine like the back and forth and like the no, you're wrong. This is not because tone. Talk about tone on text, right? But now I can do this and like yell at somebody.
Alex, there's your next video, friend. Just you and Lina start commenting back at each other only via Loom videos on an issue.
So you're gonna get a kick out of this. So Lina and I this morning were thinking because we've gotten pretty good reception from the opening video, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Lina, what if we did a video on like how we use Jira to save our marriage?
Oh, bad Alex, bad.
New channel.
So I mean, I'm gonna do some parodies where like low key, just how passive aggressive people are gonna be with their Loom videos here.
Right, or I could see
family discussions with Loom.
Yeah,
family matters.
Everybody just has something they just talk into their AI thing, right? And blah, 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 and then the AI spits it out with the right tone, as it were, and nobody actually talks to each other. They just are like this. So then nobody can, there's no offense because it's.
So, new segment of the podcast where we help Alex brainstorm his videos.
Yes. Of course. It will naturally happen. Well, and then with your Loom message, can you then go comment on your Loom, and then you have to go see your comments on your Loom and then comments on Jira?
Now, I wonder though if the assistant here can pick up on what I wrote. So let's make a refresh because we have to refresh the.
I agree, Sean. TMI, Alex.
Where the magic happens.
Oh God.
Okay, those are two concepts that should never touch.
No.
Whatever's going on in Alex's world and Jira.
I'm just talking about the magic happens here with Atlassian intelligence. You guys are all in the gutter. This did not look like it picked up on my Loom video, which disappeared.
Atlassian decided that Loom video was not worthwhile.
Mike's over there like, guys, go get into that Jira and delete this. they're exploiting the system.
Right.
Well, on a serious note.
Good.
No, on a serious note, we should figure out like what are different ways that people are going to exploit these threaded comments. And I'm half curious to think when Atlassian introduces new features, how long does it take for somebody to like? All right, this is gonna sound bad, but do you guys ever watch Mythic Quest?
Only a couple.
Okay, so there's an episode in Mythic Quest, and I'm gonna try not to turn this into a more rated R show than it already is. But there's an episode in Mythic Quest where every new feature that they announce, they carefully evaluate how long it's gonna take the end user to make it perverted. Right, and I'll leave it at that to keep it kind of PG-13. So I wonder if Atlassian has something similar when they're introducing new features, not the pervertedness, right, but the exploitiviness of it. Like, how long is it before somebody like throws in some edge cases on like bad ways of using comments or something like threaded comments?
Exactly.
Because I can see a manager dropping in a comment 50 threads in or 50 thread layers in and going, guys, I told you about this.
right? Right. Just got buried. And to Sean's point, right? So as things have the potential to become slightly more buried or obfuscated, what about with automation?
Yeah, I don't know. So I would assume that when you add a comment via automation, it just appends it to the top. But let's go see if there's a way to reply to a comment in automations.
Because I remember with the Zendesk integration having to make sure we sent over the thread for Zendesk versus, or maybe not exactly on comments, but right, but making sure we were hitting the right
Wait,
version.
you use Zendesk?
I do not. I was only in a conversation about integrating with Zendesk.
Because if you know anybody, our channel sponsor is looking for somebody that knows Zendesk.
Like to hire?
No, just they need a chat.
Oh.
All right, we can suspend the user in Okta. Customize. Let's just type in comment because I'm not going to be sitting here. We can comment on a work item. This is a test. I don't see an option to make it.
No.
I didn't see an embeddable option. But I wonder if there's a way to do it through like smart values. Sarah, this is your favorite part.
It tended to be, but we'll just start searching comment.
Well, because you could like, I would assume that if they wanted to, right? Because isn't this a thing like last comment is a thing inside of it's like a smart function, smart value?
Search your values for comment.
Anyways, I won't waste some more time on there, but it doesn't look like automation. I think automation is just going to stick it to the top.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But the Loom videos are interesting. I think, you're going to have
some podcasts started mentioning it. I'm sure that's on automation's backlog.
And it's so messy. I don't even know how that would go.
I'm telling you though, but the threaded Loom video comments is going to be the way of the future.
That's hilarious to think about that. Now, once upon a time, I wanted this, and then you guys can tell me why it's a bad idea, because I admit it would be a little obnoxious. But I wanted to be in some fashion able to categorize comments, which gets me into this whole argument of, well, if you're going to categorize a comment, then why don't you just make a custom field for it? But then you don't really want custom fields. But my point is...
like a label? Like you want to add a label to a comment?
In a way, yeah. So imagine Rodney. This is just his personal note, right? Like, I don't want it to send notifications to everybody. It doesn't need to ping anybody. It's just, hey, this is my little note. This is where I am on this particular thing. Whereas another comment I make, I might want to make sure folks are aware of that. Like, this is a status update comment I am making and needs to be treated as such. Or this is just informational comment that I'm making. And, so if somebody comes along later and reads this, they have some extra clarity about something. And then I got into okay, then I guess you select a default, right? Which is like do nothing, but only do something if you add a label to it, and then be able to have the settings for what to do with those labels. And then it got all real messy. But generally speaking, like the heart of the idea.
I don't think you have to go that messy though, because I can see that functionality coming over from JSM, right? We have the concept of an internal versus public comment. Yeah. It would be interesting to have a personal versus public comment. Where maybe you want it, because if I'm looking at a comment, sorry, Rodney, as much as I love you, but I don't care to see your business in the ticket in the issues.
This is my point. But now he could hide them in threads, huh?
Right.
So we found one thing. So now maybe it's just a thread. Maybe people get ridiculous.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. But now you got to think about again the time to exploit, right? At what point does Rodney make a super critical comment that his job depends on it? And he's like, he fat fingered the private comment.
Well, he got all mousy with it, right? Because you'd have to.
And then can your admin see the comments? Can Robo see all the comments? You open up a whole can of worms, Sarah.
Yes.
I don't hate the idea. What I'm really having problems with is now the admin has to go in and like configure, okay, what happens for each kind of comment, what kinds do I want to have.
Right.
It could get into configuration nightmares really fast.
But it's okay because Robo's going to do all the configurations, right?
Yeah, and those were all the sort of debates I was having with myself, right? Rodney is like, how far does this go? What would all the features of this thing be? And how would you do that?
My 2 cents to look at our good friend Brian here. Brian dropped this post earlier today, I believe, about Forge. And here we go. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see this one here. But Brian has this post where apparently if you want to make a comment be required on a transition change, you can't, although I thought you could. But anyways, he ended up going with Forge and was able to add a validator because you get behind the scenes stuff. So I wonder if teams could through Forge have like a color coordinating that type of thing that you can append via Forge that is something that's homegrown, not necessarily Jira grown. Because that to me seems like the future of what Atlassian wants to go with Forge is to give teams even more ultimate customizations, but not necessarily through marketplace apps, but through Forge itself.
And that's a great concept until Atlassian decides to update something that needs to change Forge APIs in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years when you already left the organization. The thing I have with Forge is I love the idea of, please, for those who want to give people access to do this kind of things, but the end users have to realize you now have to maintain that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Welcome to the job description.
Well, I mean, yeah, but
I mean,
a lot of cloud admins have been able to get away from that for a long while now.
Oh yeah. I mean, I pulled up Forge today for the first time in 2 years. And that's only because I'm making a Forge class right now.
I like how this conversation, at least in my mind, shows, what happens when you build a product, right? What are all these things that people who don't work in the product development don't think about in terms of, oh, I just want this thing, right?
Yeah, some product manager who doesn't use Jira.
It's so easy to build this thing, and it's like, no, yes, conceptually, like concept, great. Execution takes a lot more because of all those little fiddly bits, and then who owns it over time, right? With what it sounds like is going on with Forge.
That's why, and this is why one of those things of like, I had a problem with the new UI and I have a new problem with the Atlassian New Direction because I like the fact that Jira has rules and laws, right? There's things that you can do and there's things that you absolutely cannot do. And I think that's a really good thing. I think becoming a tool that can do anything and everything is not a good thing. It's great from a market share perspective, and I think people will buy into it, and obviously, stakeholders and money. But for me as a lonely admin who loves this tool so much, the more you give me ability to customize it and do whatever I want with it, the more unmanageable it becomes as an admin.
And this has always been the trade-off with Jira specifically. And I think we're getting way off topic here, but I just want to make this point. Jira's always been great about giving you 5,000 ways to do something. You just have to understand about half of those are terrible ideas. And you likely won't know which ones are good and which ones are terrible until you try it.
Team managed projects copy.
Right.
But that's why you pay for a good experienced Jira admin, because they've likely already made the mistakes at someone else's organization.
Yeah, that's basically what you're paying for, because every idea sounds like a good idea until it's not.
Exactly. Wouldn't it be great if? Maybe.
But here's what's likely to happen.
Yeah.
Don't ask me how I know.
Wait. But the irony is, here we are, the three of us, kind of critiquing Atlassian and saying, like, wouldn't it be cool if Atlassian or Jira could do this? And yet Atlassian must be over there rolling their eyes on us, going like, these guys, what do they know? They don't pay the millions of dollars of market research that we pay.
Well, and or like I didn't read all of Yen's posts today about having a public for, a public way to enter in ideas and view ideas and vote on ideas. And it's because like what we're talking about, right? There's additional nuance and reasons for building and not building something that goes well beyond just it's a good idea and or lots of people seem to want it, but
I think my 2 cents with that, and again, not to go too off topic, but you need to have a
We're off topic.
Yeah, we're off topic anyway, so we're off the ledge.
The Jira Life is our topic.
Yeah, my perspective on that is, one, you can't boil the ocean. Okay, like if you're gonna open up a public board for good ideas, bad ideas, all the ideas, like know that you're not gonna be able to do everything, and I think that's one. Two, we live in this era where people are very sensitive, right? And so if an idea isn't selected over another, then you open yourself up to another exposure, another can of worms there. 3, at the end of the day, somebody needs to make a call, and somebody with the spine, right? Like you need to be able to take criticism, because not every idea that you select is going to be the right decision, right? And so you need to make a call, though, because the inability to make a call because everybody's pulling you like in 2 different directions is going to cause you to not make an idea, like not take action, which is worse than if you took the wrong action. So I'd rather build an idea, like I'd rather not publicize the idea, build something like what Atlassian does here, have someone like me beat it to death and then pivot, as opposed to making it open so that someone like me can debate one side and someone like Sarah can debate the other side, and then Atlassian's kind of stuck in the middle of like, well, they're both good ideas, and then you do nothing. Or you end up with the worst. You end up with the compromise. Then there's like a hybrid engine is like the worst thing in the world, right? Like it's not a good electric car and it's not a good gas car. You're stuck with something in between. You don't want to be.
I like my hybrid a lot. So,
but compared to my Tesla, the Tesla outperforms it. Compared to a regular gas-powered car, the gas-powered car outperforms it.
I think, and this is my 2 cents, hybrid would be much better if the engine really was just a generator and it was just an electric car chassis with a generator.
The Chevy Volt did that already. So, but you see the point though. Like, so at the end of, like, I think that if you were to make a public idea board like public, you'd end up with paralysis. I don't think you would take any action.
No, product boards can be overwhelming already, just with the internal requests and internal needs, especially if you're building something for internal use. That can already be a lot to deal with. And then in those cases, opening up. And then the comments on those, are they going to thread those comments?
Probably.
Have you ever seen, let me see if I can get a full screen. Have you ever seen this fable? The Man, the Wife, the Donkey, and the Critics?
I'm not sure.
This one says, clueless people. So these are people critics, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a woman and an old man and a donkey. And they said, clueless people, they don't even know how to ride a donkey, right? And so they're critiquing them because they're not riding the donkey. Uh-huh. And these critics over here is like, what a wicked couple. They have no mercy on the animal because they're both on the donkey. So like opposite polar ends on these here, right? And then we got this critic saying like, stupid man, he should have rode because he's the boss of the woman. Well, okay. Not sure that this was written in woke America. And then number 4 is, then we swap the roles, right? It's like, what a selfish man. He should be kind to his wife. And then we finally have a, what a stupid looking couple carrying the monkey. And so like, somebody's always going to critique you. So any idea, no matter how good or bad the idea, you're never going to be able to please everybody. So that's why I said you need somebody that can make a decision and own it. Because that's the hard part.
Indeed.
But also we already deal with this as Jira admins. We're not going to please everyone. We're going to have to tell someone no. Sometimes for very good reasons. Sometimes just because there's competing priorities.
Mm-hmm. You flipped it up there and then you took it down.
I wasn't sure because it had a star, and I wasn't sure.
It had a star because I want to revisit this after the episode during our team meeting.
Talk about communication problems, right? When Ronnie joins me on my live streams and he puts stars on them, they usually indicate to me that Ronnie has queued it up for me to talk about.
Yes,
but apparently now it means that we're going to talk about it after the show.
Again, that's the difference between me showing up and producing for you on Ape Tech and me co-hosting.
Where is our producer? I have not seen our producer since team.
He's out this week, didn't you know?
Yeah, he's
I know he's out this week, but I have not seen him since team.
Then you haven't been looking.
His producing has been non-producing.
It's not true.
That's a lot.
Wait, hold up. But I want to talk about this one for one more second because Chris, so not to spoil things, and we'll talk to our unproducing producer. We were thinking of having healthy debates where Rodney and myself or somebody else, we stand on two opposites. No matter what, it doesn't matter what you believe in, but you pick a side and you stand by that side, like if your life depended on it. And so let us know if you'd be interested in those kind of shows, because we were thinking of doing something like that. Changed my mind.
And then we can up our number of comments on YouTube, right? Because we'll make everybody vote on who wins the debate.
I didn't get the crown thing. What do you guys do?
You have to be on the actual live stream, and some people have a crown next to their name. Right now, our top commenter for this particular one, our top fan, is Chris for this episode.
Oh, look at that. Oh, I've heard of this. I've heard of this. YouTube's supposed to let us do something with this, so we're supposed to do something with those points.
Man, I have not had a chance to look at it today, so
I thought it had something to do with the members, but the members mean that they're green, right?
Yeah, the members are green and have the little TGL next to them.
Yeah, Chris says he's not been commenting the most, right? I feel like I've seen the most ping from Sean, but maybe it's number of
characters. It's quality over quantity. I don't know. This just popped up first time I'm seeing it. I
want to go back and ask another question though that is on topic real quick.
All right.
What, or is there, what would you consider an average number of comments on an issue?
20.
Right? Does more than that seem excessive? To me, if there's more than that, either that could be indicative of is this particular work item totally clear? Should it be broken down? What's going on there?
Well, let's not forget we have hierarchies. Because you just simply asked work item, but what kind of work item?
I'm just saying on any given work item.
No, because
usually when I start seeing more than about 20, 30, I usually start thinking about auditing the API logs.
Well, what do you say to an initiative? That's a multi-month effort.
I say that's in Confluence, not in Jira.
No.
I say that's not the place to be having that discussion.
Why?
Because
she wants to have it in a meeting or a series of Loom videos.
Well, it just feels. I have this weird thing that I totally get. I'm probably completely wrong about, but I see Jira more so as really structured data related to whatever it is. And Confluence, yes, it can be structured and whatnot, but it's not, in fields, right? It's not that level of structure. And that when you start getting that many comments and back and forth on the initiative, is that the right place for that level of detail in Jira versus just having it open up in a Confluence page?
I think My 2 cents. It's about context preservation and that train, right?
And that Confluence page opens up right next to
Yeah, but that is something that just started happening recently,
know.
right? But people have been using Jira for 20 plus years. You don't just all of a sudden go, okay, guys, stop putting comments in here. We're going to move over there. Like Habits Break Heart. What do
You
you think?
say that, but we're also expected to stop calling them issues and stop calling them projects.
But there will forever be issues and projects to us.
Right. I mean,
when Rob's on next week, it's going to be very interesting because he's almost allergic to those words now.
Who is?
Rob
Heen.
Oh.
No, I think it's context, right? I think it's context and convenience. You want to get the point because the same argument can be made. Well, why can't you just have an integration with Slack and just have the conversation in Slack?
Yeah. And that's what I want to know more about. What the feelings are on that, even though we've only got 4 minutes left.
Yeah, I would say preserve the context. I would say have the conversation in a single location and do not scatter. But have it where you're going to be. And I don't think you're going to naturally be in Confluence when you're looking at a ticket to get the status of the ticket. But
then you have an expectation that everybody's going to be in Jira who needs to weigh in on that. That's where I think, especially with an initiative, that doesn't necessarily always is always the case.
That's why a system will work, and that's why Atlassian has made so much money because they want everybody in Jira. Think of it the other way. Like, why are we using Jira? Right? Because this is one of the bigger things that I like. This is a meta conversation I have maybe in another episode, but Jira adoption. If we focus on Jira adoption, why do people use Jira? And why do people not use Jira? And a lot of the teams that I have to go and convince to go use Jira, it's in the way, right? Jira naturally gets in the way. Having to pause your day to go create a ticket, to go update a ticket, right? There's a reason why Rodney has that shirt. It's not part of your everyday workflow, right? But the people that are at the initiative level, those high stakeholders, if they demand for the information to come from Jira, then the behavior will be altered. But if you're expecting them to be in a different tool and they're not monitoring it, then they have no reason to do that update of the status of Jira. You got to eat your own dog food from top to bottom. Everybody's got to be in the tool.
Yeah, but they don't. No matter how much you say they gotta.
Because they're not. Right, because they're not. And then that's where Jira breaks, and this is why I think System of Work's going to fail.
But to your point, do you integrate it off with Slack or Team or something else so that somebody who's more accustomed to working in Team could just access it from there and add their comments from there without the context, because maybe they don't care about the context because they're just reacting to the last comment?
I think it's hard, but that's why also Yasun's not sponsored, but that's why Yasun's app is such a popular app, right? Because it lets the stakeholders, where they're at inside of teams, be able to carry the thread and be part of the conversation. And I think we need more of that, because at the end of the day, I need the feedback and I don't want duplication of data. So I don't care how you solve it, as long as we're not talking about the same problem in two different places.
Yeah.
So it's either in the Jira issue or it's in a Slack channel somewhere. Or a Confluence space or
email.
A whiteboard.
That's been in the office that has been used since 2019.
Confluence whiteboard shows how much time you spend in the cloud.
I like them.
I love whiteboards. Whiteboard's my favorite feature.
Yeah. Yeah. And at some point then it all starts going into there too. Yeah. Where I can access my issue and comment on I think it's just making like the access to the issue itself as easy as possible. So whether that's through a team panel, whether that's through a whiteboard panel or a Confluence page. I
think as much as Atlassian doesn't want to do this, and as much as they don't put on the roadmap, Jira needs a stakeholder license. Jira needs a read-only license where you can follow comments, maybe add a comment, and be part of the conversation. I think that's what's fragmenting companies.
Yeah. I still keep thinking of certain, are stakeholders willing to go there? Because it lives there, but are they going there?
But if the party is there and you have free admission to the party, you're going to go. The problem is right now it's going to cost you 2 arms and 2 legs.
I don't know if you're going to go.
And your firstborn.
Yeah. And although they'll be commenting on the analytics boards at some level.
Well, that's why teamwork graph is such a beautiful thing, right? That Atlassian's kind of putting their eggs in that basket. I predict in 5 years, if you're not in Jira as an executive, you will miss out on everything. I think Atlassian is in weaving into the fabric of Jira and their Atlassian cloud products a single place. I still envision this thing where where CEO comes in and goes, "Why is this not working?" And it just gives you the answer. Because if they're not, that's going to be the only place. The Atlassian tool is going to be the only place where every executive on Earth is going to be able to ask one single place, and relative to their data, their answers are going to come back. Because what other tools doing that other than Copilot?
We do not have time for this, but maybe
I think we have
talk
enough
about the $5 Rovo non-licensed user.
It's part of the master plan. I'm telling you. I see what Mike is doing there. I we see. We watch.
Well,
You'll see.
We
All
definitely
right,
need to revisit that topic and about a dozen others from this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not taking notes.
Subscribe button if you haven't already. We're like 40 away from 2,000, so hit that subscribe button.
Yep. And we'll see you next week when we have, and we actually had to confirm this today to be sure, but we will have Rob Heen from Heen.Tech come on. We're not sure what we're talking with him about yet, and that's kind of exciting, but also kind of makes me nervous.
It'll be great.
Especially when we have Alex,
Sorry.
our little chaos gremlin over there.
What it really is the Jira improv life. You guys don't know this. We're just all in a big improv show.
We're just gonna have to do the episode with Rob Heen sideways, like our heads just tilted to the side, so we can put Jira back where it belongs.
Exactly.
But until next week, subscribe, like the channel. Check out our sponsor, Revyz, and thank you, Revyz,
Tell
for
your
backing
friends.
us up.
For your friends, back up your Jira with Revyz.
Yep. But as we say here, we didn't choose the Jira Life. Jira Life chose us. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for listening to the Jira Life. Our hosts are Alex, Dr. Jira Ortiz, Rodney, the Jira guy Nissen, and Sarah, #IBelieveSarah, Wright. Our producers are Robert King Bob Wen and Lina Ortiz. You can catch us as we record this podcast live every Thursday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on YouTube at The Jira Life. Be sure to join us and the other Jiramigos of the Peanut Gallery each week to ask questions, add your comments, and tell us what you're up to. If you can't join us live, you can still catch the replay on YouTube. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell while you're watching. You can also find this as a podcast on Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you think this podcast deserves a rating, it would be much appreciated, as it will help others discover the Jira Life. Because we didn't choose the Jira Life. The Jira Life chose us. Thank you to Revyz for backing us up and making the Jira Life possible.